Psalms 85:11. Truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven. Call Halal Yahweh Bashem Shai Bahashem Rakaha Kwadash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so, now more so than ever. To the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners among the heathen that look like the heathens. And to the Akwaf that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you another lesson in truth. And it's a wonderful thing when the Lord leaves the relics in the earth that are dug up and found to prove certain points. This is one of the thousands of relics that was found among the Native Americans, all right, and proving that they were in the Assyrian captivity. So that when you read 2nd Ezra, let's go to it. Let's go to 2nd Ezra real quick. Wisdom of Solomon. 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter and the 40th verse through like the 45. I'm going to read it real quick. And it reads, those are the 10 tribes which was carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, who Salmanasar the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so they came into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, and that another land was America, because the ancient world was a different part of the world, different landmass, all right? And it says, and they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelled. No one had ever dwelt in the land of Americas, of the Americas, or the islands of the Americas. They had been visited, but they had never been settled, all right? And it says that they might keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land, and they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. Meaning he held back all those wild waters. Those are some of the most turbulent waters. The waters off the south coast of Africa going over into America. All right. And it says, for through that there was a great way to go, namely a year and a half. And the same region is called Asareth. You have to remember in the book of Kings, not in the book of Kings, but yeah, in the book of Kings, it talks about what's his name? The Hamite that worked Hyman. I believe his name was Hyman, if I'm not mistaken. But he was the part of Solomon's navy, right? He was a servant of Solomon, these Africans, all right? And they would go on a trip. They took a year and a half to go and a year and a half to come back. They would come back every 3 years with gold and spices and things of that nature. Let me just try to find it real quick and just read that portion. But, they took this trip and they went to, and the landmass was called Asareth, which is defined in Jewish encyclopedias by rabbis as the land where the 10 tribes went to. All right. But it says here, this is 1 Kings 10 and 22. For the king had at sea the navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. So I was right. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. And that word peacocks is turkeys. When you look it up, turkeys are indigenous to the Americas. So there's no way of getting around this fact. All right? There's no way of getting around. And it's also in the book of Chronicles, Chronicles 9 and 21, the same story. All right? For the king's ships went to Tarshish with the servants of Hiram. All right? Every 3 years once came the ships of Tarshish bringing gold and silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. You know what, let me close this blind, get that glare off the screen. It's a lot. There we go. And so this relic that you're looking at on this book from 1825, which I'm about to read from, I have the book in my possession, in my hand. This is a reprint. All right. I'll put some light on it. This is a reprint of Ethan Smith's book. All right. From 1825. All right. View of the Hebrews, the tribes in America. All right. The tribes of Israel in America. So, this is the preference, all right? And it says, and I'm just going to read the highlighted portions that I highlighted. Okay? But it reads, in the early 1800s, there was a high interest in American Indian culture, and artifacts resulted in many books, newspapers, articles. The New York newspaper occasionally ran stories about the Indians, and so that's often what Esau does. He'll just, with his media, dismiss facts and figures and evidences, and he'll just put other stories and other things until people just stop thinking about it or talking about it. That's what they do when something comes up. You know, when something comes up that proves, and they'll speak about how amazing and the theories and the possibilities, when you know that that's the evidence. You know, if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, then it's a damn duck. All right. And they came, like I said, and there were many relics found like this that they brought with them from Assyria. All right. So they were using the Assyrian script. But the funny thing, though, is that when they got here to the Americas, they didn't use the Assyrian script anymore, because most of the writings that they made of their own, they used the ancient Paleo, Hebrew, the Phoenician, the style of Hebrew that was written and spoken in the land of Canaan. And it says, historian Dan Vogel gave the following overview of the 19th century beliefs about the American Indian. All right. And then it gives you the resources where those came from. All right. When he gave that overview in that speech. Okay. And there it is. Those are the two books. And that's what I love about these old books. Because he gave that was in the Palmyra, New York in May 26, 1819. And then in Wayne Sentinel, Palmyra, New York, October 11, 1825. Okay. And, and it says by 1830, the knowledge of the impressive ruined cities of the Maya of Central America and the Inca of South America was commonplace in northeastern United States. In addition to the inhabitants of those states were almost daily reminded of the building acumen of the early Indians and the remnants of fortifications as well as burial mounds dotted the area, since most 19th century Americans did not make distinctions among various cultures and lifestyles of the Native Americans. Instead, through the desperate groups of belonging to one race, the Indian, they also intended to see all these ruins coming from one group. And then this is something that, this Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, they love to categorize people and give you titles that make them feel comfortable and help their cause, right? By labeling you Indians, all right? And they knew that this was nowhere near India. The whole thing about Christopher Columbus was searching for India. His name was Cristobal Colon. He was Jewish, all right? He was a Spanish Jew, and he was from Spain. He wasn't even Italian, okay? And he was not Italian at all. So, Italians breaking their neck, embracing Christopher Columbus and Columbus Day, and Columbus was not Italian at all. All that's a lie to throw you off the trail of who he really was and who he really is. His real name is Cristobal Colon. I have a book on the shelf behind me of a lawsuit from his son Diego Colon against the crown, and his letters to and from his lawyer. All right, evidences, receipts. Okay. But it says in 1625, Manasseh ben Israel's Hope of Israel was published in England. This Jewish Israelite was a firm believer that the remnants of the 10 tribes of Israel had been discovered in the Americas. James Adair published History in the American of the American Indians in 1775. This theorized that there were 23 parallels between Indian and Jewish customs. For the example, he claimed the Indians spoke a corrupt form of Hebrew, honored the Jewish Sabbath, performed circumcision, offered animals for sacrifice. He discussed various theories explaining Indian origins, problems in trans-oceanic crossing, which is well known among the natives at this point. All right, and the theory of the mound builders were a white group of more advanced than the Indians. All right, the dozens of Indian books, right, dozens of the other Indian books containing similar thoughts were published in the 1700s and 1830s. Joseph Priest, The Wonders, the Natures of and Providence, displayed, published in 1825, quoted extensive from Ethan Smith's book, View of the Hebrews. And then here, once again at the bottom, to show you the receipts of all these evidences of these books and where they can be found. All right? That's the beauty of these old books. They give you the resources. All right? Then you also have to remember that the president of the Smithsonian Museum in 1783 made a decree that any relic, like the one you see on the screen on the cover of the book, that predates Christopher Columbus, they would not put out in the museum. And the reason being because that exposed the lie. All right, like the guy said that there was a theory that white people built the mounds. So all of a sudden, the white people came over here and built the mounds for the Indians and then left. I mean, these people, like we said, these people are amazing in their conceit and their lies and their delusions. All right, about this perceived greatness that they have, when the truth be said, they've really built none. They've only destroyed. Other people built things for them, or they came and took what other people's built and put their name upon it. This is what they do. All right. I'm still in the introduction. It says the mound builder myth receives scriptural confirmation in the closing chapters of the Book of the Mormons, because the Mormons also, Joseph Smith, no relation to Ethan Smith, also wrote that the natives were the children of Israel, but he wrote that they became dark flesh, because you have to remember what how they were described by Ben Franklin as being tawny or swarthy. All right. Okay, and then there was the brother Cootie Merrill, put up all those images last year of the different natives, pictures from the mid and early 1800s that were the color with this new technology. The colors are restored, and they all look Negro by skin. By the skin, they all look Negro, and some of them did by the face as well. Okay, so there's no denying, who they are and what they, and then you got these dummies that want to say that none of the, all the natives today are not the natives. No, many of them are. They're just the watered down, lightened up version, the same way you have so-called light-skinned Negroes. That's madness. We always tell you that you can't judge the man by the outward appearance, because there's a lot of dark chocolate people who got Edomite forefathers. Just because you dark flesh don't mean you are Israelite. You have to remember that the Southern Kingdom, which never used this form of Hebrew, this is how you know that the people claiming to be Jewish. We'll focus on them for a moment, and not the people of the Lord, because they're hell bent on using this form. It's a lie. See, my man. They're hell bent. Goddamn commercials. God damn it. This guy, you know, I've used this video many a times in the past, and it's called "Shocking." These are not the Jews, but they are, and there's the book, Facts with Facts. I just did 3 lessons using this book, but this professor, it's called the Sermon Rooms. He goes deep into this history, and he talks about when you're speaking about sensitive things, it's best to use resources that come from the people. All right, and he's pointing out that Benjamin Friedman was Jewish himself, you know, and so all this information about these people not being the people of the Lord is coming from their own people. Okay, so once again, and you have to remember that the kingdom of Judah, the southern kingdom, the house of David, they never used this form of Hebrew, but this is the Hebrew that they use today. Remember, the southern kingdom was never in the Assyrian captivity. The northern kingdom was. And when you look at the relics, I have a book behind me that has a coin and money from the time of the first century and the time of the Maccabees, and all their coins, all their money had the the Paleo Hebrew on it. None of it had this Hebrew. Why? Because the southern kingdom, the kingdom of Judah, was never in the Assyrian captivity where this form of writing was used. So tell me, why would the southern kingdom, who was never in Assyria, be writing in this form? So what's that scripture says? Their own tongue bear witness against them, but do lie. I can't think of it right now. Someone could put it on the comment board. It says that well, you know what I'm saying. It says their own tongue shall bear witness against them. I'm gonna attempt to find it, but I'm sure that one of the beloved brothers will put it on there on the comment board. Yeah, and not I. It says, yeah, your own and not I. Yeah. Let me see. Try to do a partial phrase. Wow. Yeah, I'm not going to find it like that. Try one more thing. If not, I'll just keep it going. Because that scripture is escaping me right now. That's a good one, but that's not the one I'm looking for. Well, I will read this one because this kind of fits. This is a... Nah, never mind. No, it doesn't. Salakia. So let me just keep it going. I gave a valid attempt. couldn't think of that scripture, man. Where it was anyway. I kind of mangled it, quoted it to the best I could remember it, but that wasn't quite it. But nevertheless, they love to pass things off as being coincidental when you prove things, just like something is going on with the with medical stuff. All of a sudden, when things are going wrong, it's just all a coincidence, or But here we go. Here's another book that was used. It's called Melvin B. Hogan: A Parallel of Matters of Chance versus Coincidence. The Rocky Mountain Mason, January 1956. Reprinted by permission by the author Melvin B. Hogan and the publisher George Sloan. Simon G. Southern, Losing the Lost Tribe, American Indians, DNA, and the Mormon Church, Salt Lake City signature, 2004, pages 29 through 31. All right. So there's been plenty of books. Okay. As a matter of fact, let me read the paragraph above it, the highlighted portion. It says, the mound builder myths received spiritual confirmation in the closing chapters of the Book of Mormon story when the final destruction of the fair-skinned civilization Nephites occurred in the land of their brethren, the savage dark Lamanites. Oh, these devils, boys. The story must have appeared plausible in early Americans who, for most of the 19th century, believed the Native Americans were responsible for the genocide of the postulated early advanced races stereotypes. So, you know, so basically what they're saying that these dark Native Americans killed these white pale Native Americans who really left all this Hebrew and made all this art and all these things. That was a theory that these people were so full of hate and so full of racism. And that's the same thing that they did. That's the same thing with the Hamitic theory. They came up with the fact that there had to be a group of white Africans among the dark-skinned Africans, because there's no way that these dark people, and see, this is because you got to think, we're talking about the 17th, 18th century. They were heavily pushing Darwinism and pushing the lives of Johann Blumenbach about the Negroid, the Caucasoid, and Mongoloid was a completely made up pseudoscience. All right. In fact, let's get a scripture on that. Which is 1 Timothy 6:20. You know, they would use science as a weapon and pseudoscience, science that they make up that's not really science, and then they'll, and defend important things, kind of similar to what they're doing today. But this is 1 Timothy 6:20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called. All right. So they were using false science and fake history, theories, same way they do medically in a lot of cases, to push forth a point, And right here it tells you, they talk about these Nephites and these Lamanites who were dark-skinned. The story must have appeared plausible in early Americans. See, they know it was bullshit. But most of the 19th century believed that Native Americans were responsible for the genocide of the postulated early advanced race. The stereotypes of misunderstanding served to validate Europeans' theft of the lands as the act of retribution. American Indians were themselves intruders in the land that had belonged to an earlier race, one that was comfortably familiar with white colonists. So the white colonists were being taught and believed, or were being taught and told through media, newspapers and books or whatever, that these dark-skinned, who were dark like Negroes, these brown-skinned, tawny people, all right, killed all the whites that were there before them. And they were simply just taking it back from them. That was the justification for the wickedness that they did. So let me grab a scripture. And this is actually really enraging. I'm really pissed, because this is the sort of thing that and some of them still believe shit like that. Just like they try to go, they show you relics from the time of the Ptolemies in Egypt, and then try to show you that the Egyptians were, white people or pale people, so-called, when the Egyptians were, super dark, extra chocolate dark, okay? But like you said, like I said earlier, that hurt the narrative of white superiority, which was heavily pushed in the late 1700s into the 1800s. And relics in history like this was very harmful to that lie, to that cause. Hence the reason why the president of the Smithsonian, decided to, in 1783, to remove all relics like the one on the screen that predated Columbus. All right, because now you got to explain why these people who were here before Columbus were writing in Hebrew and had languages and built these pyramids and mounds and because all the mounds is just was pyramids and all these great cities that they found with irrigation and plumbing, in the Americas. All right, but this is Genesis 49 and 19. Okay, and it's this concerning Gad and Reuben. All right, but it says, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. All right, so the majority of the natives in Americas, in Northern America, are the Gadites. All right, and the same way they took, Gad down, they took down the rest of the northern tribes too. And then the tribe of Reuben, which is my tribe, the smaller tribe here in the Americas with Gad, also labeled as Indians, in the southeast part of America, mainly in Florida. All right, and they all came to that fate, except for the fact that my tribe, beat down the U.S. troops, and they were forced to make treaties with us because we kept getting in their ass. There was a battle when Andrew Jackson, known as the Indian Killer, sent 30,000 troops against 3,000 of Seminoles, which meant runaways. All right, which consisted of Reubenites and Judites that had joined together. All right, today they're called the Black Seminoles, and they don't even like to acknowledge the Black Seminoles. Our beloved Elder Apostle Ricard is one of them. He even has what Esau calls receipts, IDs, and to prove who he is, but as if he didn't know who he was without that. All right, but Esau loves to